Well, hello, good people of the world. It's the Big Heavy, and if you've watched any of my past videos, you've probably come to realize that I'm a big advocate of running. It frankly amazes me a little bit every time I say that because I hated running through, at this point, the majority of my life, and maybe 15 years or so ago, started running. It's literally changed my life. It's done all these wonderful things. But today I don't want to talk about me, I want to talk about you. And on one of my last runs, I was thinking about how could I get just one person, and hopefully that one person is in fact you, to have the same experience that I have around running. And that experience has been, again, literally life-changing. It's improved my fitness, it's changed a lot of my behaviors, helped me lose weight, helped me explore, physical boundaries that I frankly would never imagine I'd be even able to kind of knock on the door of. And as I was thinking, I realized there's some great organizations dedicated to something similar. There's Girls on the Run, there's the boys equivalent that try and get young people to start running. I'm sure there's some adult-focused organizations. But being a good, God-fearing, red-blooded American, I of course assume that not only could I do it better than these people that have spent lifetimes dedicated to that challenge, but that throwing money at the problem was probably the right solution. So what I want to do is pay you to start running. Now, what I mean by that is I'm not going to just, make it rain and shower cash on you. But what I will do is if you sign up for your first 5K, and this is going to require that you plunk down the registration fee on the spot in order to do that, and you send me an email at the email address that's on the screen with some sort of receipt or proof that you registered, give me a sentence or two about why you decided to take me up on this offer, or why you're interested in starting running, and you ultimately complete that race, I'll reimburse you the race fee. Now, I don't have any sponsors that are helping me with this, although if somebody watches this and wants to sponsor a bunch of people to engage in this exercise, would love to have you along, and I'll somehow figure out how to hype your brand or whatnot. So this isn't some big, massive formal program. I'm hoping I can do this for 8 or 10 people, depending on what kind of response I get and what kind of registration fees there are. And ultimately what I'm trying to do is get people that have maybe thought about running but perceived it as too hard or something like that, and get you kind of off the couch, force you to train for something. I think the 5K is something that anyone can do. I'm going to push you, and again, I have no way of verifying this, but I would, request that you ultimately try and run the 5K, not just, go and pay $50 to take a nice 3-mile walk in a park somewhere, but put in the time, get off the couch and ultimately train and hopefully execute a well-run 5K. And obviously the definition of well-run is going to vary for different people. For me at my current stage of fitness, 22, 23 minutes is kind of a well-run 5K. For somebody that's never done it before, I would expect a 35, 40-ish minute. So in terms of kind of rules and disclaimers around this offer, again, this is something I'm doing out of my own pocket. I'm not somebody that has an army of lawyers or anything like that. I am just a big dumb animal on the internet. So kind of the foundational, rule I'd throw out there of this whole process is act like an adult. I don't mean be a certain age, I mean just act with grace, act with dignity, and act like somebody that is respectful and trying to do the right thing. And if you can pull that off, I guarantee that I will also act like an adult, and I'll figure out a way to help cover your race entry fee. In terms of kind of the details around how that works, find a race that's interesting to you, find something local. Usually a 5K is, free to $40-50 these days. Unfortunately, I don't have the means to be able to sponsor you to go with, Elon Musk and run a 5K on the moon for, $3.6 billion. So keep it reasonable. And ultimately, if you have any questions or concerns, find the 5K you're interested in, shoot me an email. I'll tell you if I can swing it or not. Again, I think you're a winner at the end if you just go and sign up for the dang thing. And even if I've already covered 8 of these things and can't afford to cover any more, you're ultimately going to win the reward of doing something pretty awesome for yourself at the end of the day. The only other couple of caveats, you need to be able to somehow accept a Venmo, Zelle, Apple Pay type of transaction. I'm not going to mail you a check. I'm not going to go and get you foreign currency or mail you a chest full of cockerel shells or anything like that. So, you need to accept one of those payment methods. And obviously part of being an adult is understanding your own limits. I am not a doctor. I am not a Scientologist. And I'll throw out, you know your own body better than anyone else. So go see a doctor if you have any concerns or worries before starting this or any kind of fitness program. I'd suggest go and talk to a PT or something like that if you get a little sore. Go and get some PT kind of help, or go and check with your doc, because there's a difference between a good soreness, which is your body saying, holy cow, I think this joker's serious about getting moving more often. And there's, a bad kind of soreness, which is, hey, if you keep doing this, something's going to get messed up in the longer term. The other thing I'll offer is, if you want to do this, whether or not you want your race fee reimbursed, I'm more than happy to give you an email pep talk. I'd also suggest checking out David Goggins on Instagram if you are ever in need of a pep talk of some sort, or read one of his books, which I'll link to down below. But to give you an idea of my own background, when I started running, I did my first 5K back in a 2018-ish kind of time frame. Prior to that, I'd never run a 5K formally. I don't think I'd ever run that far informally. I could probably count on one hand the times I had run more than a mile in one session. And I had set up in my mind that I was not a runner. That, in order to be a runner, you had to have some sort of special, genetic trait. You had to, have been born with some degree of fitness or whatever. And I thought I had given it an honest shot by going out and, trying to run around the block 3 or 4 times, ending up a hot, panting, sweaty mess and saying, nope, don't have the magical gene that makes me a runner. So what I would suggest, if you're going to take me up on this offer, is doing what I finally was wise enough to do in 2018 in terms of training, and that's hit the Couch to 5K program. I have no affiliation with this program other than having done it and having it, launched my running career, which, again, kind of started with that 5K back in 2018-ish, is culminating with, in a few months, I'm gonna go and try and run 100 miles, which is absolutely insane and bizarre to even say that, considering for most of my life I couldn't run 1 mile. But what's great about Couch to 5K is it starts you off very gradually. I think it's like 8 or 10 weeks. And it's basically structured so that it's a few workouts each week. I don't think any of them are more than half an hour. And when you start off, it's 90-ish% walking, and then you go and run for a certain amount of time. And I think it's something like a minute or 2. And again, I put a link down in the show notes with a free version of the program. And there's all sorts of apps and paid things you can get, but I think the free version will work just fine to get you started. And there's 2 pro tips I'd offer you if you're going to follow Couch to 5K. Number 1 is sign up for that race. Pick a race, commit to it, and do one that's several weeks longer than the Couch to 5K program. So I think Couch to 5K is like, let's say it's 10 weeks. Try and pick a 5K that's 13-ish or more weeks out. And the reason I suggest that is, when I did Couch to 5K, and this is in the fine print somewhere, I repeated several weeks. And what I'd recommend, the first couple or 3 weeks were relatively easy, but then when I got to like week 6 or 7, at the end of that week, I was like, ooh, that was hard. Those workouts felt hard. I was kind of exhausted at the end. So I just repeated that week before moving on. And there's no shame in repeating 1 week's program, 2, 3, 4, however many times you need, until your body kind of catches up with the program, and then moving to the next week. And the final training note I'll leave you with, and maybe this is broader life type advice, is don't let the perfect become the enemy of the good enough. And what I mean by that is, maybe you don't have the latest and greatest carbon running shoes or whatever, but you probably got a pair of battered old, tennies or cross trainers or whatever kicking around somewhere in your house. Throw those on, use those for the first couple or 3 weeks. You're gonna be fine. Similarly, maybe you don't have the super cool, dry fit running shirts or whatever. And, I know all the experienced runners say, don't use cotton, wear synthetics or wool or whatnot. But you probably got a ratty old t-shirt somewhere. You probably got some basketball shorts or some tights or whatever. Throw on what you got. Those first couple or 3 weeks of Couch to 5K, you're not gonna be doing a ton of running anyway. And just get out there and get moving. I love the advice that David Goggins gives, because I think it's 1000% true. And that's that sometimes the hardest part of getting started with something like this is just putting on your shoes and lacing them up. So, don't worry about not having the perfect equipment. Don't worry that you don't have the, super fancy Garmin running watch or whatever. You probably have a phone if you want to track your stuff. If you don't have a phone, you probably have a old watch somewhere that has a stopwatch. That's all you really need to get started, since everything in Couch to 5K, I believe, is time-based, at least initially. If it's raining or you don't like the weather, go on your treadmill. I'd advocate running outside. I think that's a lot more fun and one of the joys of running versus hitting a treadmill. But do what works for you, do what works with the current stuff you've got. And after you get that 5K done, maybe as a reward, you go and buy the super fancy shoes, or you get the, cool Garmin, and I'll put some, Garmin options down in the show notes if that's of interest to you. Or you go out and, just rock a big cheeseburger and pat yourself on the back and feel good for doing something that, maybe you, like me, didn't think was in the realm of possibility for you when you started out with the program. So find that 5K. It's easy to do. Just go type, 5Ks near me in the Google machine. The Google machine already knows where you live. It knows, what you do at night in the dark by yourself, and it's selling that data to everyone else. So, you might as well use that to your advantage. In pretty much every, major, minor city, town, countryside, whatever, there's regularly 5K races. It's pretty easy to find one. They're pretty reasonable to sign up for. And the reason I keep harping on, signing up for a race is it puts that fixed date in the calendar, kind of forces you into a goal. And I think also, when you go and toe the line with dozens, hundreds, potentially thousands of fellow runners, there's something magical about that. I distinctly remember my very first one where, we kind of heard the gun go to start. And I remember looking around and seeing all these other people engage in fitness. And I was like, hey, this is kind of cool. I'm part of something that's bigger than just going out by myself and pounding the pavement. The other reason I like finishing off at the race is you're gonna hit the struggle bus at some point on your first 5K. You're gonna feel like it's hard. Maybe there's a hill in there and you just spent all your time on a treadmill and you weren't quite ready for that. Maybe it's just mile 2.7 and you're feeling a little gassed. Look around you, engage that fellow community of runners for some moral support, or just find somebody that looks right in their tights or shorts in front of you, lock on and kind of let them pace you into the finish. So go out there, find that 5K, get that sucker booked, shoot me an email. Assuming I still have some funds available, I will happily reimburse you when you successfully execute that. Send me a picture with your thumbs up and your big shit-eating grin that you finished something that was hard that you didn't think you could do initially. If you need a little pep talk along the way, I'll fire you an email or two. And again, hopefully just one person out there in YouTube land figures out that deep inside of them there's actually a runner, and gets some of those benefits that I've experienced, and one day is encouraging others to get out there and hit the streets as well. So with that said, it's time for me to go and execute my run today. Hope to see you out there at some point in the near future, and maybe someday you'll be that person screaming past me, looking right in their running outfit and rocking it out. Big Heavy wishing you all the best and wishing you peace. Ever wonder why every talking head on YouTube asks you to hit the like and subscribe button at the end of their video? You were right, because we're living in a computer simulation. And our benevolent robotic overlords get just a little bit of energy every time you hit that like. So do me, the rest of civilization, and our benevolent robotic overlords a favor. Mash that subscribe, be kind to each other, keep living your simulated dreams.